same as,
Yeah,
there was no,
just get rid of that before.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, October 23rd, 2024. We're here for the Commissioners' Weekly Meeting. Would you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, and I will call the meeting to order. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Adoption of current agenda. Is there any additions or corrections?
Mr. Chairman, I move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Staff has asked that we pull item number 2 from regular business. So I would second with that amendment.
Number 2 on regular business.
Number 2 on regular business.
All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Approval of minutes. Any additions or corrections?
Good.
No corrections from me.
Corrections, all right. Approval of warrant registers, weekly and payroll rosters.
Have two this morning. They're both fund expenditures. Mr. Chairman, I move for fund expenditures in the amount of $2,173,035.33. And it has been signed by two members of the Auditor's Office and our County Administrator.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, I have another fund expenditure, and this is for the HAPO Center in the amount of $27,774.01. And again, it's been signed by two members of the Auditor's Office and the County Administrator.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Public comment. Is there anyone in the room for public comment? If so, please come forward, state your name. You have 3 minutes.
My name is Lisa Godwin, and I am the Executive Director of Elijah Family Homes. Hello, Commissioners and guests. Elijah Family Homes was started in 2005 by a group of people from Christ the King Church who saw the need in our community to help those in recovery who are struggling to find housing. Our mission is to provide hope, dignity, and self-sufficiency through stable housing and supportive services to families in Franklin counties and Benton County who are seeking recovery. Our Transition to Success program is a recovery program where clients must be clean for up to 9 months before applying. While in the program, they receive housing and wraparound case management for up to 3 years. The graduation rate in the TTS program is 96%, and all these families are clearly local. During the 19 years we have been in existence, I cannot find one time when our clients have had issues with law enforcement. These families are committed to and engaged in their recovery. We are looking for your support and help for our cottage housing community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Adam Diaz, owner of Lexar Homes. We've been building in the Tri-Cities and surrounding areas for the last 15 years. We'd like to be involved in this project with Elijah Family Homes, and I believe you were given an email forwarded by Mr. Troy Woody. And this has some renderings of the plan design, the way the community could look. This would be basically 7 cottages built on foundations. This would not be quickly put together, but buildings that would be meant to last multiple generations on foundations, built with the care and commitment that we put into all of our homes. It would include 1 bedroom, 1 bath, kitchen, a little over 600 square feet, and the 7 units on a 1 parcel of land, with 1 unit being designed to be a manager home and 6 units designed to be used for the clients of Elijah Family Homes. I'd encourage you to take a look at the video. There's a rendering of the space, what it could look like. as well as the floor plans, some pictures of the insides, the models. And again, we create and build all of our homes with the utmost care as if it was our own home. And so we're just looking for your support and excited to work together on this project. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just make a quick comment. The email was referred to, and I'll wrap back around to Adam. It has a Lexar kind of sign-in issue on the PowerPoint, so the PowerPoint just doesn't come through for us.
I will make sure that, thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that gets
Great.
available.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Troy Woody. I'm here to kind of wrap up these things that you've just heard about. Our next step will be to take this presentation to the Franklin County Planning Commission and go through that process. At some point in time, though, I know the rubber meets the road when it comes back here, so I wanted you to have some preemptive ability to understand what our focus is and where we're going. There's a couple real key points here. There's a lot of community involvement in this, including Sunrise Rotary, which is one of the drivers. For me, the driver is this: 96% success rate. That's huge. The second driver is, this is really, for me, this is not about the family, or this is not about the mom that has the addiction problem. This is about the kids. We all know in the court system, this is generations after generation after generation. This model is designed to stop that generational decline. That's really it, right? So 3 years is a long time, up to 6 years if they go through the first program. All the other rehab programs around are 90 days, maybe 6 months. You're not going to turn your life around in 90 days. I couldn't, and mine isn't messed up. And secondly, if you have a relapse, you're out. And Elijah, you're not. So it is a long-term sustainable process. I see this as a model, these homes as a model potentially for veterans housing. There's a lot of applications. One of these cottages was mentioned will not be a home. That cottage is perfect for a training center. We can bring in Dave Ramsey financial peace classes. We could bring in CBC nursing potentially to do free health care to use as practicing nurses. WorkSource, Columbia Basin to work on resumes. There's an entire network of our community that could come to this housing complex and provide these services. So that's all we came for today. We want to do a more formal presentation. We just couldn't seem to make the schedule work. So this is how we did it. So you'll at least, as it comes through the Planning Commission, you'll know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Commissioners, my name is Jason Bliss. I have the privilege of serving as the co-chairman on the Benton Franklin Recovery Coalition, as well as sit on the Bi-County Advisory Board. I wanted to personally come and thank each and every one of you for your hard work in getting the interlocal agreement hammered out with Benton County and with Franklin County's contribution to over $5 million for that new recovery center. I know that was a lot of hard work. I know it was a lot of going back and forth. We have so many individuals that are here in our community, not only in Benton and Franklin, but there is no boundaries when it comes to the addiction issues that our community is facing. There are no boundaries when it comes to the individuals that need the help. And again, I want to personally thank each and every one of you for the time and hard work that you put in to making this happen. Thank you all.
Thank you.
I'm up. Hi, all. Nicole Carby. I'm on Facebook under Nikki Carby, NICCICARB as in boy Y, blue check mark verified. If you could please follow along there, X and True Social, just to ensure complete transparency of this government would be greatly appreciated. In my now, and my timer's not working conveniently, like the meeting yesterday on Zoom in Benton County. Please look at that meeting so you guys are up to speed. I'm here in front of you guys today regarding Attorney General Pete Serrano, who is also the City of Pasco Mayor Pro Tem, in his private business, the Silent Majority Foundation. 1 year ago and 1 day, so on 11/4/23, and you guys will be forwarded the email that was provided to him already. I was asked if we could discuss what was going on within the city of Pasco as well as the Franklin County Commissioner, and he opted not to. And it is the job as the Attorney General to actually expose crimes and criminals and not cover them up. And most recently, the Franklin County Republicans, Stephen Bowman is the chair, but you guys have all participated in that party at some point, so he's just there by default. Recently gave him $12,000. So here in the real world, when people commit crimes, they're prosecuted, and then those who fund those crimes are also prosecuted. So for the record, I just want to make perfectly clear that Pete Serrano is a member of the Mormon Church. So yeah, and Stephen Bowman and I are members of the same Church of Faith Assembly off of Road 72. And as tough as the position is of Attorney General, even if it means exposing your church where crimes are concerned, that's still what you're supposed to do. In closing, I'm going to continue to show up to these meetings via Zoom and in person, and I just would like you guys to consider this, me being in your face, and that's a message sent directly from God. Thank you.
Anyone else for public comment?
Morning, Commissioners. George Dockstetter. I've got a couple questions since you're doing the budget. I just did a transaction. I was told I had to have approval from the assessor's office, but I couldn't get it on Fridays because they weren't in. The person that would be there on Friday didn't have the authority to approve what we wanted done, which was basically transfer ag property and keep it in open space. So I'm wondering if we're on 4-day work weeks or 5-day work weeks. The county needs everyday representation for the public when they come in, because I might not be able to make it on a Thursday. It might be on a Friday. So I'd like to know what the assessor's office is doing besides sitting on their butts twiddling their thumbs that they can't be there on Friday. And the other thing is, why does it take 2 weeks to get a transfer of open space for farmland? That should be a no-brainer, looking it up on a map and seeing you're surrounded by thousands of acres of ag land. And, well, we got to have 2 weeks to see if this qualifies. It's just a bunch of garbage and a waste of our money and time. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. I was out of town last week and I put a text out to see how we were doing with the resolution of support for the communication sales tax. My understanding is that has not been done. I'm frustrated about that. I have the City of Connell, I have City of Pasco, I have Tri-City Herald, I have Franklin County Fire District number 4, number 3, I have the Pasco Chamber of Commerce, I have the Hospital District number 1, and probably a few others that I'm missing here that have all provided resolutions of support. Now, maybe I don't need that. We'll see in a week and a half here for the election. As a reminder, this is a 2% tax, 0.2% tax. So if somebody is spending $500,000, that will cost them $1,000. In the scheme of things, that may, for some, we never liked taxes. We've talked about that before, okay? But the fact of the matter is, what we're doing here is trying to create a program that will provide a solution for our first responders and for our county citizens that are in need of updated, upgraded radio systems. Okay, that whole infrastructure needs to be taken care of, needs to be making a decision, and I believe that the commissioners need to be getting behind this, not be against it. My understanding is Robert's Rules of Orders, how many minutes? Robert's Rules of Orders, when you guys vote for something, then you're all for it. You can't backstab the whole group by working elsewhere on that. It's not right, You voted for it, you put it on the ballot, you made sure it's gonna happen. And I don't appreciate it. I was in Kentucky last week, and when I got this message, then I was like, wow, my time is worth a lot of money. Our first responders are worth a lot, and our citizens are worth a lot. So, too late, as far as I'm concerned at this point, with the resolution of support. Should have been done 2 or 3 weeks ago. Not happy. We need to make sure that everybody here votes yes for this Prop 1 sales tax on communications. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
it's 0.02%.
that is correct.
It's not 0.2, it's 0.02. We voted to put it on the ballot for the people of this county to decide on. That doesn't mean we're in favor of it or against it. We're letting the voters have a choice.
Anyone else in the room for public comment? Do we have any callers on the phone? Oh, yeah, come up, sir.
So my name is Brian Thornhill. I'm the fire chief for Franklin County Fire District 5. Some of you were at the meeting on Thursday with the Franklin County Emergency Board that I'm having issues. It's called the REP program, and I have some disputes, some issues with it. I think now we're on the path after that meeting where some of the comments were actually on the path to get Fire District 5 to belong to the REP program. But there's lots of concerns. I'm not going to go over them. I've got notes. I'll have to look down at my notes every once in a while. But my concern now is that Commissioner Bauman showed up at the meeting. And prior to that meeting, I discussed with Commissioner Bauman and one of my fire commissioners, Clyde Brubaker. We had a discussion in regards to where Commissioner Bauman thought that the comments or my concerns were incorrect. So we discussed that. And one of my concerns was that during an exercise, they had to play out if there was an incident at the REP program that commissioners would have certain decisions. Well, they're based on their procedures. And Commissioners Bauman's thought was that once a declaration of emergency was declared, he had authority over all of Franklin County. So all resources were under his guidance. That's fire, EMS, and law, that he could tell us what we would be doing and how we would do it. So that was a concern. I showed him, I brought the procedure on my phone to that meeting, and at first he wouldn't look at it. My commissioner asked him to, and it states in there that no, fire, EMS, and law, we are on our own statutes, and we operate to take care of our needs in the county. So that was the first one. The other issue was on dispatch. He believed that if we were dispatched, so we have the emergency where there's some kind of deposition or something coming, a plume coming across the river, and now there's an emergency declared, and people are evacuating, and we have an accident or something that the fire district needs to respond to, or law enforcement or whatever, that we're not dispatched to that. It has to go to the EOC, and they dispatch us from there. So I also showed him that that was incorrect. So that meeting happened at Commissioner Brubaker's house. And then when this meeting happened on Thursday, I brought that up, that, hey, this is what happened, and these were the comments, these were the what Commissioner Bauman thought happened. And he pretty much said that I made false statements, and that wasn't true. He never really said what I made my false statements on, but what in the commissioner with Brubaker and in the commission. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room for public comment? Do we have any callers on the phone? No. Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda. We have 5 items on the consent agenda.
There's 6.
6, I'm sorry. I stand corrected.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the 6 items on the consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Moving on to regular business. Number 1, update Columbia Valley for Recovery presentation by Matt Rasmussen, Deputy County Administrator, County Engineer. Good morning, Matt.
Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for having me this morning. I've got a PowerPoint slideshow here. If we can bring that up, but I wanted to come and give the commissioners an update about things that we've been working on related to the Columbia Valley Center for Recovery. So get that.
Is your mic on?
Yeah,
It's got the green light there.
Okay,
So
thanks.
Hang on, we're working with the technology here.
Don't hit the wrong button.
The other button's the eject button.
We're not letting them out of here that easy.
Well, thank you for coming this morning. And
absolutely
thank
happy
you
to
for the
do it.
patience.
So. That's okay. Great. All right, there we go. We go through this every time in our meetings too. It's technology just gives you trouble. So anyway, I appreciate you gentlemen having me come and do this, and I just wanted to go through we'll go through a lot of the different things that have been going on and some of the basic stuff that's going on, and feel free to interrupt me anytime along the way and ask questions as they come up for you. So I'm happy to answer anything I can. So wanted to start kind of with the whole basis of what this whole program is now built upon, which is the chemical dependency and mental health sales tax. And so both counties passed those taxes back in 2022. Benton was July, I believe. Franklin was April. They implemented them. And so right now, the balances, as we have them these are as of August, so they've changed a little bit since then. Benton County has 8.3 million. We're averaging about 550,000 a month in revenue from that. Franklin County has about 8.1, averaging about 240,000 a month in revenue from that. And so in a few slides, we'll see a lot of those monies are now encumbered by the construction at the recovery center. So I want people to know that even though there's a fund balance there, both counties are committed to spend a good portion of those in the next couple of years here. So,
So I have a question already.
yes, sir.
If the balance is 8.3 million for Benton and ours is 8.1, and then you look at the monthly average, yours is almost twice as much as ours.
We do spend some of the funds out of our fund balance or our thing, and so you can see here. In fact, it's down in the next slide. We fund our therapeutic court program through that,
All right.
and we also fund a few other smaller programs. So we do spend about $1 million a year out of that fund.
All right, thank
So,
you.
Mr. Chairman, but
Yeah.
you've already spent some on the facility too.
we have committed some to the facility. We haven't actually spent those dollars yet. We're spending primarily grant funds right now.
Okay.
The grant funds have timelines associated with them. We want to get those spent before we spend the local dollars.
Yeah, because I know that you had invested something in there, so it was
Yeah.
grant funding. Okay, thanks, Matt.
So for this tax, the revenues are to be dedicated to substance use, mental health related services. Until 2023, last year, that was services only. And so the state legislature changed the law and allowed that to be used for capital projects, which was a boon for us because it allowed us to fully fund this recovery center project. So that was a great thing that the legislature did. So we were appreciative of that. As I said, for Benton County, our plans are to only fund operations at the Columbia Valley Center for Recovery. We definitely want to talk, though, with Franklin County in particular and our other neighboring counties if there are options to share costs to treat all the residents in the region. We want to make sure that happens. We're working on a contract. Once we have a better idea of what that cost is going to be, we're going to start those negotiations with you gentlemen to make sure. We don't want to start talking about a contract until we know what the cost is, because that's going to be the first question everybody asks. So. We are currently funding our therapeutic courts program through that. We had to move that program into this fund to free up money on our public safety sales tax to better fund Office of Public Defense. I know you guys are challenged with the same issues we are there, and so that was a decision that our board made a few years ago. We're considering allocating some funding this budget cycle to expand our adult drug court program. I know Franklin County is also doing their adult drug court program, and we find those to be very effective. So that's on the request this year from our Superior Court bench. And then we're working on a contract for a field responder program. And so right now in the region, they have a crisis responder program, which is funded by the state, that's managed by Greater Columbia Behavioral Health. And so the Benton Franklin Behavioral Health Advisory Committee recommended that we consider funding a field responder program, which would work in conjunction with them and provide a response in lieu of law enforcement or EMS. So behavioral health related issues, when it's not an immediate threat to life or property, we would have another team that would go out. So we're not sending a law enforcement response or an EMS response. Those resources are freed up to do the things that they really need to do. So we're working through a contract with that. We've got a draft agreement together. It's been reviewed by the advisory committee, and it's going back now to the contractor to look at. And so we hope to stand that up and begin operation of that next year. It would run independently initially, and then once the recovery center opens, it would fold into that. We have a space set aside in the recovery center for that team, and so they would be working out of there. So something to keep an eye on and keep the commissioners updated as we make progress on that. That is another one that we would like to be able to come back and say, we'd like this to be a joint program and a regional program. So we'll bring that back as soon as we have some better numbers and more details for you to take a look at. And as I said, both counties have dedicated a significant portion of the funds. Benton County is committed to put $11.2 million into the recovery center. We obviously don't have that in our fund balance now, but we're projecting out that by the time those dollars are needed, we would have that available. And Franklin County is allocated through that interlocal agreement that Mr. Bliss mentioned earlier, that $5.47 million to help with those betterments. And I too also would like to thank you gentlemen and Eric Johnson for the work that went on in getting that done. And just so you know, that's gonna make a significant difference in the quality of this project. And so we do appreciate that. So the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee, so when both counties passed those sales taxes, we all decided that it would make sense to have a citizen-driven advisory committee to give us all advice on how those dollars could best be spent in the community. And so that committee is made up of experts from the behavioral health field, law enforcement and EMS are on there. We have and just average, the regular citizens are all on there. And so it's a 17-member board, 6 or 8 from each county, and then 1 at-large member. And they meet monthly at the Benton County Commissioners meeting room there and discuss all of these topics and give us direction and advice on the Recovery Center and all of these other programs that we're working on. They do that primarily through 4 standing subcommittees they have. 1 for mental health services, 1 for substance use services, 1 for communications and messaging, and then 1 for workforce development, behavioral health, particularly workforce development. One thing that the committee sees in this community is we're going to want to stand up all these services, but where are the people going to come from that are going to actually operate those? And it's a challenging environment to hire behavioral health care workers right now. And so they're working with Columbia Basin College and some of the other employers in the area to see how we can direct more people into the behavioral health field so that as we stand up these services in the community, we have people to come and actually work there. So, and we definitely don't want to be stealing from the existing services that are in the community. We want to expand what we have, not just shift it around. And so that's a big focus of the committee. Again, they provide the perspective and need on effective behavioral health services in the community. They make recommendations on contracts. One other thing I expect them to be heavily involved in is as we are operating the recovery center and these other services, they're going to be reviewing the performance and effectiveness of those contracts and making recommendations to our boards on whether or not we should continue with that, make adjustments, change contractors, all of those kind of things we want to have come from this advisory committee. They're the experts in the field. They're going to know if what we're doing is actually effective. So very important work that the Behavioral Health Advisory Committee is doing, and anybody is welcome to attend those meetings. They are the second Thursday of every month at 2 o'clock over at the Benton County Commissioner's office there in Kennewick. So open to the public and many opportunities for public comment as we go through those meetings. So on to the big one that we've been working on now for the last 4 or 5 years is the Columbia Valley Center for Recovery. And so as the commissioners know, this is intended to be a no wrong door facility. And so what we see a lot is some of the providers, they get their funding primarily through private insurance or Medicare, Medicaid. And so they want to make sure that people have the ability to pay when they come there. And that means sometimes they will turn people away. And that results in people who are in crisis not getting the services that they badly need. And so we want to operate this in a different manner. It's a model that we've seen in other states where they have a no wrong door. The local governments ensure that that first 24 hours of treatment is taken care of. Those do get billed to insurance when they're eligible, but there are times that they're not. But the local governments take care of that and make sure that those people get that first day of care that they badly need. And so we want to have walk-ins, law enforcement, EMS drop-offs, anything, anybody can come into this facility and get the treatment, voluntary or involuntary. And it's going to serve as a major alternative to what we have right now, which is you have to, right now if someone's having a behavioral health crisis, law enforcement often is left with no other choice than to charge them with a crime, whether or not they're committing one, and then take them to jail. And that's not a great solution. It's expensive and it takes up a lot of resources. And so that's what we want to alleviate here is people getting the right treatment that they need and freeing up those badly needed resources in those EMS and law enforcement fields. We're working on what we call phase 1, which is the 4 services that we've been talking about for the last few years, and those are a crisis relief center. So that's a short term. They call it 23-hour, but it's really under 24 hours. I don't know why they chose to call it 23 hours, but they can stay there for up to 24 hours and usually they get an assessment. Some people, they just need that, 8 to 10 hours, come in, get a meal, get stabilized, and then they're good to go again. If they're going to be there longer term, they're usually assessed and referred out to one of the next levels of service, which would be crisis stabilization. That's more on the mental health side, or withdrawal management. And so in this case, we're going to have secure and unsecure withdrawal management. So people who can come in and need to detox can do so voluntarily. And then we obviously have those people who are committed to that facility by a court order and they have to be there. So we're going to have both options here. So those are the next levels up. That's more of the SUD side. And then beyond that, we're going to have a residential treatment facility. So that's commonly people hear that called a Betty Ford clinic. That's the most popular term, but it's one of those facilities where you would go for about 30 days and get that longer term substance use treatment that then people go then from there to outpatient treatment or into recovery housing, as we were hearing Elijah Family Homes speak about a little bit this morning. So we are working very diligently. Right now, we are planning all of the programs would go into the old KGH facility. And I know there's been a lot of back and forth on that over the years as we've developed this project. And the main reason for that was when we purchased the property, it came with a restriction in there on the types of services that we could do. Most of them were medical service, hospital related, which was not an issue. That's not what we're interested in doing there. But the one that caused a problem with this was a restriction for crisis stabilization services, where we could not have a patient in a crisis stabilization facility for more than 72 consecutive hours. So the state law allows up to 5 days. This would be a 3-day limit. And so Benton County initially looked at acquiring and did acquire another piece of property to try to stand up the crisis stabilization services there to avoid having that 3-day limit and being able to keep people there for what was required under the state law. As we developed the project through our contracted team, they gave us numbers back that said the cost of doing that in 2 separate facilities was going to be far more than we had initially anticipated. And so we made the decision to put them back all in the same facility. There was a lot of discussion with the advisory committee. The general consensus seemed to be that the vast majority of people are in there are only there for 72 hours and less. And so there may be a very small percentage of those that we would need to find another place to go. And we definitely would like to work with the other providers in the community. If we have someone who needs more than 72 hours of crisis stabilization treatment, hopefully we can find a place to refer them to. So that decision was made there. There's a lot of information and dollars and estimates and reasoning in the validation report that was produced by Boughton Construction, our design build team. That is posted on the Benton County website under the Columbia Basin Center for Recovery tab there. So if anybody wants to read that, it's out there for everybody to consume and take a look at. And we're definitely happy to answer questions. But ultimately, that was the decision that was made, help with the advisory committee, and we all decided that in the interest of the project and being able to bring these services for the best cost, it needed to all go back into the KGH facility. So that's where we are now. We've reached about 90% design plans, so they're working with the city of Kennewick to get the permits, and we're planning on having we'll call it a groundbreaking, but we're not really breaking ground. We're probably going to knock down a wall or something, but we're having a ceremony like that on November 12th. And so, gentlemen, if you have an opportunity, it'll be at 2 p.m. there at the KGH facility. If you have an opportunity to come, we would love to have you attend. If any of you would like a chance to speak, we'd absolutely make sure that that could happen too. So please let me know if that's something you're interested in.
Could you repeat the date and time for the group?
Sorry, November 12th at 2 p.m. So on top of that, we have 193,000 square feet of space in that facility. This first phase is going to use about 45,000 of that. So there's a lot of room left there. And so through that advisory committee, we've been talking, what are the next programs that are badly needed in this community? And I think you heard a little bit about it this morning from Elijah Family Homes, as recovery housing is near the top of that list. As these people come out of the residential treatment or they're stabilized, they often don't have a clean and sober living environment to go back to, and they just end up relapsing right back into the same state they were in. So unfortunately, Jason had to go to another meeting. He could give you way better details, but as I understand, the occupancy rate in recovery housing here is 98 or 99%, and the wait list is well over 6 months to get a spot. And so I think that's near the top of the list there for something we would like to do with some of the additional space. The other things that we've been talking about are youth services, so crisis treatment and long-term inpatient care. That's a tremendous need, not only in this region, but across the state. There's a big need for that, and so that's something we're going to be looking at as additional dollars become available through the state programs, is looking at doing some youth services there. And then we've been talking with the Department of Health and Human Services about developmentally disabled respite beds. And so that's a service that we used to have in this community, but funding for it went away. And that's something where parents who have developmentally disabled kids can bring them there if they're having a crisis. They can get stabilized a little bit, or if the parents need to go to an appointment. They dedicate 100% of their lives to caring for these kids in some cases, and they just need somebody to watch them for a few hours so they can go to a doctor's appointment or something. So that's a service that we're talking with DHS about. It's a possibility that they may have funding to build that in the facility. They're just looking for a space, and so that's on our list of things that the advisory committee thinks is important. And then that probably won't even take up all of the space then, and so we'll be coming back and looking at what else is on the list that we could do out there. So we spoke a little bit about the interlocal agreement that was signed between the two counties, and that had to do with the program betterments. And so just for everybody's refresh. The Behavioral Health Advisory Committee made a list of things the contractor provided an initial list of 20 or 30 items that they said, hey, these are all things that you could add to this project if you wanted to, that we feel could make it better. And so the advisory committee took that list and they narrowed it down to 9 items that they thought were vitally important to have as this facility opened. And so they're listed there. I won't read all of them. Some of them are pretty mundane, like a security system or backup power. But some of the big ones were single occupancy rooms in the detox unit. The advisory committee thought that was very, very important to have, and so that was the #1 priority for them. And then the next one that was a big one was a commercial kitchen. And so the reason that one is important is because we are looking at a partnership with the Columbia Abilities Alliance, and so they operate the, what do they call it, the Opportunity Kitchen program. And so that program takes people who have developmental disabilities or behavioral health issues and puts them into a vocational training program. It focuses obviously primarily on kitchen and restaurant, front of house services, but they also do other services like janitorial and landscaping. And it also provides them just basic life skills training, how to fill out a resume, how to show up on time, how to take care of your own home. And so we want to bring the Columbia Abilities Alliance in there with that program. They'll not only provide meals for the facility, and if you've ever had an opportunity to go to the kitchen they have over there in the Richland Federal Building, they produce some amazing food out of there. So they'll provide the food for the facility, but they'll provide that job training, that skills training that the people who are coming out of recovery, living in the recovery housing badly need. And so it's just one more piece that we want to bring into this program to give people the best opportunity to complete their recovery journey and return to society as a productive member. So we think that's a tremendous opportunity. And again, that was a big part of what the funding that Franklin County was able to contribute is going to pay for. So it's a really big deal, very important. And there's a lot of people who are excited about it. So
Great opportunity to partner with the Benton Franklin Health District for food handlers
yeah,
as well.
yeah, they can get their
Partnership
licenses,
right there on
licensed
site.
food handlers. So it gives them, when they get out of this or the Opportunity Kitchen program, which I understand is a 12-week program, they have skills and certifications to go out and get a job. And so that's a big deal for people who are in recovery. So again, a really tremendous opportunity there. So I don't think there's anything like that in the state that has that kind of service within a facility like this. So here we are on the timeline, and I apologize for the confusion here. This was provided from our contractor. They understand it, but for me, I'm really more about the important dates. And the big important dates to me are the final design and permits, and we are very close to those dates. So we had originally final design was going to be wrapped up here at the end of October. With the addition of those project betterments, they asked for 2 more weeks, which we said, yep, that would be fine. We understand the amount of scope that we added would take an additional 2 weeks. So we are on track to have that final design completed by mid-November. That's around the timing of our opening or our kickoff ceremony there. And that's still going to keep us on track for a December 2025 completion of this project. Right now, they're not saying that the added scope would significantly increase their construction time window, so they are targeting December 31st, 2025 to be complete. And so we all know how construction goes. You start opening up walls and things, but luckily the format that we're doing with the design build, they've done a lot of investigation up front. They know a lot about what they're getting into, and so we hope that we don't find any more unexpected conditions that have to delay the project. But we do have the ability to work through those and make sure anything that comes up we didn't expect has minimal impacts to the schedule. And so that is our target, is December 2025. We are working with Comprehensive Healthcare, who was awarded the contract to operate that, to time out the operational kickoff right around that same time. So that we want a minimal amount of time before when the contractor hands us the keys to when we open the door and start taking in clients. And so we've been working with them to get a contract in place so that they can start hiring people and acquiring equipment and materials and time those 2 things out to be very close to each other. So that is the current timeline, and we keep this up to date on the county's website. So if there are any significant changes, that's where that'll all be posted, and so everybody's aware of where we're going with that. So funding, I mean, this is, when you look at the amount of money on the screen there, it's a tremendous lift that this community made to bring this to fruition. And so we have money pooled from ARPA that our commissioners decided needed to go into this facility. We have our 1/10 of 1% mental health fund, opioid settlement funds, which we'll have a little bit about here in a few more slides. We did purchase the property with capital and funds from Benton County. We purchased the KGH property back in 2022. Franklin County, you have your 5.47 million contribution there. As I understand, you're still considering the various funding sources that you could put together to do that. So I just put TB determined. And then we've gotten some money from the state of Washington, direct appropriations and competitive grants. There's about 17 million there. And we got a $2 million grant from the federal government through the Congressional Directed Spending Program. So that's a $41 million, just a little north of that, is going into building this facility. That's a big dollar amount. And this doesn't include money that's coming from the Benton Franklin Recovery Coalition. They are funding some of these other project betterments that they feel are important, that it's probably not, we don't want to use local tax dollars on. They're more, I guess, I'm not sure what but they're things like they want to fund a wellness center and a family treatment room. And so those things are not strictly necessary for these programs, but they provide much better treatment outcomes. They give people, a wellness center is going to give people something to do. They'll have some exercise equipment. There'll be regular classes in there on yoga and different fitness classes. The family center is going to be one where people who are in the center can have their families come in, they can share a meal together, they can spend some time together and begin reconnecting with their families if there was a disconnect there, and then stay connected if there wasn't. If they're in that facility and they need to be there, sometimes it's hard. You can't see your family and spend time with them. This family center will provide that opportunity. So the Benton Franklin Recovery Coalition is funding both of those. They are north of $600,000 that they've raised and planning to contribute to making sure those two things come online. So again, they've been a huge partner in this. I think without their advocacy over in Olympia and everything else, we probably would never have gotten the first grant that we asked for. And so I can't thank them and their work enough either. So they're a big part, huge partner, and very thankful for their efforts. So briefly on provider services, I kind of touched on these. In April 23, the county, after recommendation from the advisory committee, awarded a contract to Comprehensive Health Care. So they are going to have all 4 of those services under that one contract. We're still doing negotiations. In fact, I have a meeting with them next week, and we're hoping to have that contract executed before the end of this year, although given that we are almost to November, that might slip into the first month or two of 2025. And then the saying, we talked about that field responder program, and I gave you a little bit of update on that. And so we are negotiating that contract, and that program, again, will supplement the state-funded program here in the community. The advisory committee feels like that program, while very useful and helpful, isn't fully meeting the needs in the community to free up those law enforcement resources and provide an appropriate response. And so have both of those things coming and in the works right now. And then this will be the last of my I got 2 slides left here. And so commissioners are familiar with the Washington State opioid settlements. And so the state of Washington took legal action against various manufacturers and distributors of pharmaceutical opioids for their role in the opioid pandemic. They offered to local governments, which is counties and cities over 10,000 population, an opportunity to enter into a statewide memorandum of agreement. Rather than us pursuing our own individual lawsuits. And so within that agreement, the local governments get 50% of any of the money that comes to the state, and then each local government receives a percentage share of that 50% based on population. Benton County is 1.48%, Franklin County is 0.34%. And so thus far, we've collected $2.4 million, just a little shy of that in Benton County, and Franklin County is just a little over $500,000. These are primarily coming in settlements that are installments that are paid over the next 17 years. I think we're 2 years into the earliest one now. One of them did come as a lump sum payment, and so others may come that way, but primarily they've been 17-year installments. And so that's where we are on the opioid.
Matt, could you remind me, it's cities above a certain 10,000?
10,000.
10,000, so a number of our communities, cities, municipal governments also received opioid funding.
Pasco, Kennewick, and Richland receive funding. The other cities aren't above that 10,000 threshold, so those dollars go to the counties.
Do you know how the cities are thinking about allocation?
So I got that on the next slide.
Well, okay, I'll be quiet.
So the funding can be used for mitigating the opioid crisis, so expanding access to opioid drug treatment and prevention, housing, and other wraparound services. Those are all things that we're going to be doing at the Recovery Center. And so Benton County has determined that we're going to spend our dollars for operations there. Talking with the cities of Kennewick and Richland, they are interested in doing the same, and so we have an interlocal agreement executed with Kennewick already for that. They're just going to send their funds to Benton County, which will just be used for operations at the Recovery Center. And then our commissioners signed an agreement for Richland, which is going back to them, to their council to consider for the same. And so I don't know what Pasco is doing. We had talked about the possibility of doing that, but I haven't heard from them in a while, so I need to follow up on that side of it. So that's what I understand. And on the Benton County side of the river is going, everybody intends to put these dollars to the Recovery Center. It's a great use for them. It's definitely eligible, and it's a good use for the community. And so that is the last slide I have, and I'd be happy to answer any questions the commissioners have.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to say thank you for all your hard work on this program. Has to be
It is by far the biggest and most complicated project I have ever worked on, so.
I would agree, and I think it is also the most beneficial and most exciting program that I've seen in the last 20 years, and just couldn't be more proud to be part of it. And I just want to say thank you for all of your hard work, because it is much needed, and we've needed it for years, so thank you.
Appreciate that.
Well, Matt, I'd just like to say again, thank you too. I'm trying to figure out how we can get to that 72-hour. I should start taking down some notes here. We're limited right now to 3 days, so how do we make sure that we keep these people, involved or together for 72 hours?
Yeah.
Maybe one of the answers would be to talk to Elijah Holmes.
Right.
Maybe we could have one of those homes designated to put these people in there with a counselor. That would be a thought. First point of contact with any of these people is our sheriff. Instead of dropping them off, don't they do an evaluation? So they'd go to the jail first to evaluate, wouldn't they not? Or are they just going to pick them up and take them right there?
So I would definitely, I don't want to speak for the sheriff, but listening to law enforcement in these advisory committee meetings, those deputies definitely make those determinations if this person is a good candidate for being dropped off at the facility, or if they really do need to go to jail, if that's the appropriate place for them. And so the deputies in the field and the sheriff are making that decision before they bring them there.
So they may get 1 day at the jail before they bring them to you. There's a 24-hour period.
That's also a possibility, yep.
And then, just trying to think of an avenue of how we could do that, because we're limited by the state's regs, right?
So we're limited by the deed restriction in the on the property. And
That's
so
right.
The state allows us the 5 days, and then they can do further treatment or further involuntary commitments to those facilities beyond that if a court orders it. But we are limited by that deed for the 3 days. And so we're definitely talking to the other providers in the community, and Lord's Health does a same service. And so there's hopeful that we could be, hey, we can't keep them here for more than 3, but if they need that longer treatment, they could be transferred there if they have a bed available for them. And so we want to make sure that those partnerships are in place, and we don't want to be sending people back on the street who need the treatment. That is not something we want to happen, so we're going to do everything we can to make sure that doesn't occur.
And as a community, we need to work together. So I think we need to find that avenue, whatever it may be, and make it work.
Agreed.
But thank you. I know that you've put a lot of time in on this, and I wish you were still here in Franklin County.
Matt, thank you for coming today and sharing with us. That's great to have all of that information and for all your hard work. This is very, very complicated and a lot of potential here, and really looking forward to that. I do have a number of questions. I guess in the contracts that are being negotiated, is there any results-based criteria that is being put into those contracts? And I'll tell you the reason for that question. Sitting on the Legislative Steering Committee for the State Association of Counties, that's a legislative priority for all the counties in Washington State now, that when contracts are signed, that there's results-based criteria within them. Is there something of that nature in these contracts for either comprehensive or the field responder program that's underway?
So there aren't specific metrics that they have to meet, other than the field responders, they have to respond within 30 minutes of receiving the call. That's the only metric that I'm aware of, but we are requiring significant reporting out of those. And that's where the advisory committee is going to come in and be reviewing what are the actual results that are happening, and they're going to be coming back and making a recommendation to the commissioners if it's a regional type contract to say, what do we need to change? Do we need to change contractors? Do we need to change specifications? What do we need to do? And so that's how we were originally doing it. I'm going to have to look a little more into that new requirement for the results-based. Certainly if it's something that we feel as a community is important, we can definitely add them. Neither of those have been executed yet. And so I get what you're saying. That is important. We obviously want a result for what we're paying for, and we want to know what that result is, and the community feels like they're getting benefit of the tax dollars that are going into it.
Yeah, I would encourage us to do that. I'll give you an example. Yesterday in our budget hearings, we were hearing from the drug court that our counties partner on, and that program has only a 6.3% recidivism rate over the last 21 years with more than 375 graduates. And so that was exciting to hear something that they are getting real results. And so would encourage us to do that. This first step, I've been trying to follow along, and I see that this betterments adds 5,000 square feet. What is the total that right now with this thing? I know there's a 195,000 square foot facility, but I think it's about 50,000 square feet. Is that?
45,000 is what is the first phase. So that includes the kitchen and the 4 programs.
45,000. Okay. Will there? I'm trying to think of how to ask this question. If a different jurisdiction outside of our community brings somebody and drops them off here, will the priority be any different for somebody that comes from outside the area versus somebody here? And then who is responsible? We are primarily carrying the load, Benton and Franklin County, so would we be responsible for somebody brought in from, say Spokane? If somebody were to be delivered here from Spokane, would our community get priority, or would they? And then who's responsible for paying that bill?
So there's a complicated question, and I'll do my best to answer it.
Sorry,
but
I'm not
no,
making the trip
that's
yet.
totally fine. It's just one that it's been discussed a lot in the community lately, and so it's something that we are definitely keenly aware of. So because we don't have to, but we should and probably will accept Medicare and Medicaid patients. I mean, most of the people who are going to be accessing these services, that is their health insurance. And so if we accept those, we have to be able to admit anybody who has Medicare and Medicaid. So that means if someone shows up from outside the community that has that insurance, we would have to accept them. We can't hold, I don't say can't, but we shouldn't hold beds open. It creates a tremendous liability that if somebody needed a service and we were holding a bed open for for a what if, and then they went out and committed a crime and harmed somebody, there could be a huge liability risk to the counties. And so we shouldn't be holding beds open. But the way that I understand that these will be prioritized is if there's a wait list, the residents of Benton and Franklin County would receive priority to be admitted if they're off the wait list. If there's open beds, they're going to admit whoever shows up and takes that open bed. But our community would be prioritized if there were a wait list. And as far as who pays the bill, Benton and Franklin County taxes dollars cannot pay for residents outside of those counties. And so if they don't have Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance, we would be reaching out to those counties to either help fund that, or we would have to release that person back to their home, which is obviously in another community. So
That's really helpful here in kind of the priority, because I don't think that we're going to have a lot of open beds.
I would agree with you. They're going to fill it pretty fast.
Yeah. So one more, would you kind of describe how the two different, there's the 509 Recovery Coalition Board and then the Mental Health Advisory Board. Would you kind of share kind of how those interact with this facility, kind of what that looks like?
Okay, so the 509 Recovery, or the Benton Franklin Recovery Coalition, is a private, not-for-profit agency, and so they are not related to the government at all. They kind of started a grassroots movement back in 2000. They started in 2018, although various members of that had been working on this for the better part of 2 decades. I mean, it's been a discussion in law enforcement and the community for over 20 years. And so they formed in 2018 to start advocating for a recovery center in this community. They actually were the ones who initially went to the state legislature and started asking for funding. The state legislature agreed to fund that initial request, but they wanted a government sponsor, so they reached out to Benton County. Most of the members at the time were in Benton County, and Benton County agreed to take on that. So they now are moving more towards an advocacy and fundraising role, and so they are going out and getting private donations, and they're planning on paying for things that the government funding can't pay for, and that's going to be like if somebody needs to come and visit and needs a hotel room, the Recovery Coalition could pay for that, or they could pay for bus passes and different things that we can't pay for, but are good things to offer to families who are in recovery. So that's going to be their role. They do have a member who sits as a non-voting member on the other group, which is the Benton Franklin Behavioral Health Advisory Committee, and that is a commissioner-appointed committee. So again, 8 members represent Franklin County, 8 members represent Benton County, and then there's 1 at-large member. And so the 2 boards appoint their members. They serve for 3 years apiece. They can serve 2 or 3 terms, and those are the group that actually makes the recommendations on how we spend these dollars. And so the Recovery Coalition has a person in the room, and they're not a voting member, but they do have a little bit of influence there, and they express their piece and their concerns. They advocate for all of the services that we're doing and recovery funding and all of those things at the state level. So they're almost a lobbying group. You know, we don't lobby on our own behalf, but they lobby for us because they want funding and all of those things to come. And so that's really the difference. Is that enough, or is there anything else?
That helps. I'm just trying to understand the advisory. So the Mental Health Advisory Board is who would advise for expenditures or processes or procedures to the 2 different boards, and then the Recovery Coalition, it has a member there, a non-voting member, but they are more lobbying and.
Yeah.
So
exactly. You got it.
That's really, really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and believe me, I get the 2 twisted up all the time. So.
I can appreciate that. I've been trying to learn how to
I've been
keep
working in it
everything
for
separated.
5 years, and I still get them mixed up. So.
Well, the question was asked of me recently, what I thought of this, and I went back and listened to my statement later, and I said, I wish we could have opened it yesterday, and that's still my position. So if there's a way that I or we can be helpful, please reach out and let us know.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
To that effect, the contractor has that as their schedule, but we've impressed upon them is if we can open any of these services earlier, if we can do anything to advance one or more of them more quickly, we want to do that. And so they're going to be, as they get more into it and working into it, if there are those opportunities, we're definitely going to take them. So, because we agree it can't come soon enough.
Thank you so much for the
So Matt,
presentation.
I have one more question. We're talking about out of county. What about out of state?
I believe the same. That one I don't know. I don't know if I can answer because
We're so close to Oregon.
Yeah, I think if they had the ability to pay, that they could come. I'm not sure how the Medicare, Medicaid works across state lines. That's one I just don't know about. But if they had the ability to pay, I don't know why we wouldn't accept that, assuming that there were a bed available for them. So again, prioritizing wait lists to Benton and Franklin County residents.
Exactly. Thank you.
Anything else, gentlemen?
I just want to say thank you. I mean, words cannot describe how important this is, and words cannot describe how much we're indebted to you in your service, your hard work on this program.
Happy to do it.
Like I said, it is the most beneficial, exciting program we've had in 20 years, and I can't say thank you enough, but thank you.
It's a world I never dreamed I would ever be a part of. My background is engineering and public works, and somebody asked me, hey, can you build this building? I can build a building, and I didn't tell me what else was going to come with it, but it's been an amazing journey.
Well, I'm
and I've
just
gotten
so
to know
excited that
a ton of
you
great people as a part of it, so thank you. I really
Put this
appreciate
together.
that.
Thank you.
I didn't tell you it come with 33 hats.
No.
Thanks,
That's
Matt.
okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, and what a great presentation. Moving on to
We're good.
Moving on to Resolution 2024, the 2025 Weed Board Budget presented by Todd Harris. Good morning. Welcome.
Guys wanted a paper copy of our budget?
Sure. We can follow along that way, right? You.
Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you, sir.
Great, we'll just share one here if you got one. Perfect, thanks. I want it.
Good morning. Our budget that I've kind of handed out to all of you is what our, the board of directors has reviewed and approved, submitted for your approval. I'll kind of start with the payroll side. We're staffed at 4 positions, and that's kind of where we intend to stay at this point. We spent most of this year kind of looking for a 4th to fill a position that was vacated. We ended up, as probably most of you have found, that it's pretty difficult to come up with somebody to work less than $20 an hour anymore. So kind of the environment we're in, and we've set a few increases for our whole staff to keep everybody here, because what we have we kind of proud of, and we want to keep everybody there, so we don't have to keep continually retraining year after year. So. Any questions on our payroll side there?
No questions. I'd say, great job, because the increase over last year is very minimal. And thank you.
Right. Our cost share program, we've been working on for 8 years now, and or actually I should say 2025 will be our 8th year. We've helped incentivize landowners, large and small, to treat between 3,000 to 5,000 acres a year, whether it be on rangeland, CRP, or even some corner ground in around and amongst the irrigated areas. Purpose of the program is basically just to do what we can to keep that encouragement going on, treating the noxious weed pressure that we have in and around the county. We've increased that portion of our budget to, as you look down, you'll see we increased that portion of our budget to hopefully get another 1,000 acres of coverage into that program. Our roadside program, our budget's been kind of reduced on that, so we've had to reduce the amount of roads that we've treated, kind of do do the best we can with chemical prices going up every year. It's kind of difficult to maintain, but we try and watch when the prices on the herbicides are going to be going up for the next year's state contract, state bid contract. We try and get our purchases done prior to, so that we can take advantage of the current price as opposed to the increased price going forward. So we've reduced our or had a reduction in our roadside budget. You'll notice that our overall chemical purchase line in our budget is down, and that's kind of reflective of where that is. Fourth, kind of our own program, what we do with the county. We've got several agencies that we do have contracts with: State Parks, Bonneville Power Administration, on their right-of-ways, trying to help them keep their noxious weeds cleaned up throughout the year. We've gotten several grants from the state to work on Scotch thistle, tree of heaven, Dalmatian toad flax, one we just finished up here this fall. Basically, those have kept us pretty busy through the year, and we work both with agencies and private land as well. We've done some drone applications, or put the drone into a couple of these state grants to work on the tree of heaven and some Scotch thistle up by Connell, just to kind of get an idea of how they work. And we found that they're not 100% up to the terrain that we were dealing with there. There's some improvements coming on the drones that'll help with that. We've did some aerial applicator with the airplane through state parks and through Bureau of Land Management, as well as some private landowners in our cost share program to help coordinate and line up those projects. So again, it's been a pretty busy year all the way through. Being one person short through most of the year, it's kept us hopping all the way along. So anyway, if you have any questions, be happy to answer anything on that.
Well, I just want to say thank you for coming in under last year's budget. Can you attribute why we're down in roadside spraying?
Well, basically, that's Public Works provides us with funding to do the contract, and their funding is down, so that's kind of trickled down, as you might say there. So.
Okay.
That's actually a question I had, was trying to understand the relationship between, so the county allocates funding to you to then perform that function instead of them having their own county crews do right-of-way spraying, and ditch spraying. You do that for them.
Yeah, we have an interlocal agreement
Okay.
to do the road spraying. We have the weed board owns the trucks, and we get the driver's license to run CDL, have CDL licenses and pesticide licenses to do the applications. And so basically we do what they don't have available to do, I guess, basically. So.
And I think that the road department likes to use the road graders and bring the soil up to the road and then put it back, which I would rather have the spraying. Because when you weaken the shoulder like that, then we start losing our blacktop. And there's some roads that I've been on here recently where they've actually broke away to the fog line and beyond. And I'd like to see our shoulders stay firm and use the spray instead of the graders.
Anything further?
I see that in your letter here, it says about 5,000 acres annually. Has that number been on a steady rise, or?
Oh, it's been pretty consistent. Basically, on our cost share program, what you're referring to is, we try to keep a minimum because, there's a certain amount there in the cost share that we try and maintain so that it's beneficial enough to get people to not only sign up, but also to follow through and do the application. And so if we don't maintain that certain value, I guess, to the cost share for each participant, then a lot of times they'll not do it, and then we end up with less getting done. So our goal, of course, always is to get more of the noxious weed sprayed as we can. So
As that drone technology gets a little bit better and the terrain following component gets a little bit better, will that enable you to do more acreage for less cost, or just access stuff a little bit easier?
Well, I think probably the access is going to be the more beneficial part. The cost-wise, I mean, you're still, I mean, there are drones that you can run in sets of 3 or something like that. That would probably help the cost share part, cost expense to it. But realistically, the getting started in it and getting the drones all up to snuff, it's going to take some time and money. So I think the access to the rougher terrain as they get the sonar and radar set up on those so that they can adjust as they're moving across that land it's going to be the bigger benefit to them in smaller projects probably. So.
Mr. Chair, if I could just ask
Yes.
a couple quick questions just for my own kind of information. Is your assessment a county-wide assessment or just in the kind of the unincorporated area and not the cities?
It's countywide.
Countywide.
We have an assessment of 5 cents per acre on the dry land, rangeland, 15 cents an acre on the dry land farmable ground, and then 30 cents an acre on the irrigated plus 8 acres per parcel. So there's a pretty good portion that we receive from the city, the population here in Pasco.
So it's a per parcel tax inside the city then as well?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
30 cents per irrigated acre?
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
I just want to say thank you
Thank
to you and your crew, your hardworking crew. We appreciate all the work that you do, and
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Ready for a motion?
So, Mr. Chairman, I move to approve Resolution 2024-0251 as presented.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to Resolution 2024-0259, procurement of 500-gallon de-ice veg skid sprayer, presented by Craig Urban, Director.
Good morning, Commissioners.
good morning.
Thank you, Chair. Craig is unable to be here today, so I'm here in his place. While performing pre-winter inspections, the Franklin County Motor Vehicle and Equipment Rental Division determined the de-ice sprayer unit has major concerns with its structural integrity. This includes the tank showing signs of cracking, as well as the frame having major rusting with concerns of structural failure in the near future. This equipment is needed. That's a major part of our snow and ice control. The cost is $18,116.94 plus tax. It will be paid from the equipment rental revolving fund. And Public Works is asking to purchase a 500-gallon de-ice/vegetation skid sprayer. Are there any questions?
Questions?
So as I was kind of looking into this, it looks like that, hats off to Mr. Gregg for finding this and the way that he is able to work that. I believe the retail cost on this is about $36,000. Is that fairly accurate? So hats off to you for just doing an excellent job with that.
No questions.
Questions?
It's sort of a no-brainer.
All right, well, thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of Resolution 2024-0259 as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Resolution 2024-0260, Life Flight Group Membership Agreement, presented by Lizette Potter, Generalist.
Good morning. The resolution before you is regarding our LifeLight benefit that we've been providing to our employees since 2019. This is the 7th year, and it has been presented to the board every year. This needs approval before we can enroll any employees for 2025. We do this around open enrollment, which is November 1st to November 11th. Last year, we had about 47% of our employees enroll. Every year it has increased. So we're also anticipating that for 2025. The agreement, there's no changes. The only thing that did change, there's a increase of the fee from 65 to 75. However, there is no financial impact to the county. That is paid by the employee through payroll deductions. Do you guys have any questions?
No questions here. I'm part of our family has Life Flight, and that's why I think that's up to the employees, and the employees are taking it out of their check. So another no-brainer.
All right.
I think Life Flight's great.
I've purchased it for my family for, I don't know how long time. I knew somebody that needed to be rescued out of Palouse Falls, and I think that flight was something like $47,000, and I think it's a great thing. And Mr. Chairman, I would move for approval of Resolution 2024-0260 as presented.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner updates, administrator updates.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me just cover a number of, I think, the larger items that are kind of in front of us. Obviously, the budget, we are in the midst of budget week, so spending a lot of time on that, spending a lot of time thinking about how to bring that together for your discussion and decision-making. So I would just ask that you continue to set aside time next Wednesday. We'll do a workshop setting following the board meeting. Don't know how much time that would be, but encourage you to not schedule too much in the afternoon as well if we go a little bit longer. As you think we talked earlier, it'll be really about focusing in on some of the larger decisions that you have to make that impact both the revenue and the expenditure side. So thanks for all of your attention and really participation and engagement so far. It felt like Friday, not just Wednesday, frankly, with all the really good discussion we've had so far. I am finishing up the letter to the Office to the Supreme Court regarding the public defense standards. So I've got that out for a couple of reviews, and I'm still waiting for one more kind of, hopefully, I've got the Association of Prosecuting Attorneys draft letter. I was hoping to get the WASAC draft letter just to see the consistency or hopefully a common message to be able to continue to be delivered. We're starting to work on kind of the implementation of our public records officer. We're going to set a meeting up with kind of all the public records officers, so we kind of really have a good sense of how we're going to operate collectively. So we've got that work. Hopefully we'll have that meeting next week. We're working to set that up. We'd love to have done this week, but we've got other activities kind of going on. And then I do need to spend some time probably better understanding kind of how the county is allocating the .09 fund, and spend a little bit more time and then do a little bit deeper and how that fits with some of the other activities that are happening in the community on economic development. So I'll be spending some time looking at that here. And then the other item, and Mike's here, I'm spending a lot of time on HAPO. There's a lot happening and a lot within, I would say, a decision-making framework as well. So really starting to think that through and understanding both contract agreement, contract administration, the decisions that are in front of the board from, capital improvements, from operations, and then really the decisions that you have to be making in partnership with both our contractor, with our departments. We clearly have an interlocal agreement issue and some partnership with the city of Pasco that we need to better define. So starting to get a better, clearer picture of what all that looks like, so we can start to really think about what is the scope and sequence of all of those activities that need to occur as well. So it's definitely perhaps one of the items that I'm spending more time on, I can tell you, than I thought I would be spending time on in my kind of finite, 20 hours here. So spending all the time. I really appreciate Mike. So thanks, Mike, for all of your help in helping me understand more and more about HAPO. So the HAPO Event Center. Let me get that out there. So how'd they do? Good? All right, thank you. That's what I got.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Bauman.
Mr. Chairman, I've got probably a longer one. Nobody throw pins at me. Had lots of meetings around the courthouse with multiple different departments. Benton Franklin Walla Walla County Good Roads Association meeting. And congratulations to the city of Pasco for having 2 of the top 6 projects on that list. And what that is all of the local jurisdictions get together and prioritize the projects around the region that become the regional priorities, and with a little bit of adjustment on how that board operates as far as the top 6. Once a project gets on the top 6, it stays there until the project is complete. And so Pasco was successful in getting the Road 76 overpass on that top 6. Had a statewide meeting with elected leaders, a Zoom meeting, Franklin County Emergency Management Board meeting that I was there as an alternate for Commissioner Didier, and wanted to just speak to that just a little bit. It was spoken to just a little bit earlier. I'll try to kind of summarize a little bit of that. Franklin County Fire District 5 is not currently a part of the REP plan, and that is of their choosing to not be a part of that, and that is since 2012. There has been a bit of difficulty with Franklin County Emergency Management and all of their responsibilities and working with Fire District 5. The meeting was pretty thorough this last week, and believe that we got to the end of that as far as the board is concerned. As was spoken earlier, not everybody agrees that issue has come to a close. And if there's anybody that has knowledge of that would like some more information, I would be happy to share a little bit more offline of that.
And Commissioner, for those of us that came from the west side, Radiological Emergency Preparedness Program, REP plan, which was something like when when I went and talked to Sean Davis and started learning about those type of things. There's certainly things you don't plan for in emergency management on the west side. So
Yes, so,
really, thank you for kind
Yeah,
of talking about that.
it's in a nutshell, it's what happens if something happens to Hanford. What do we do? And there's just extensive plans in place that are exercised in many, many different ways, and there is a large planning process that happens with FEMA once every 8 years. And I was able to be the presiding commissioner at that this year, and it was I was amazed at the preparedness, and hats off to Sean Davis, our emergency manager, does just an absolutely excellent job, and all of the responsibilities that department holds with planning and preparing for situations that we all hope never arrive. And so just really thankful how prepared they are. I've had quite a few discussions over the last week with different leaders in the community about the job loss in Connell, and one of the questions that at the last meeting that we had in person up there about that, I agreed to go talk with Ben Franklin Transit about if there's some potential or opportunity there, and so they are working on that. So thankful for their help, the staff there. Benton Franklin Council of Governments board meeting, just listened in on that on Zoom. Over the weekend, had the opportunity as an alternate to work with the Benton Franklin Board of Health, and with concerns about the avian flu that was found in our community. And just thank you to all of the people that are involved in that, all the leadership and their hard work in keeping our community safe. That is very, very much appreciated. Have had intense budget workshops this week, and appreciated all of the people that have been so gracious to help me learn through that process. I've sat down with people before and after the meetings, asking for clarification and understanding on different things, and just really appreciate the people that have helped me so much in that. On Monday, had a really neat opportunity. Amazon is fairly new to our community on the scale that they are now, and so we had our budget workshop meetings, and then I ran out of here and went to Fire District 3 out on Self Landing Road, was invited there by Amazon, and Amazon and the Gary Sinise Foundation partnered and gave a grant of $50,000 to our Franklin County Fire District 3, and they donated 2 kids bounce houses. One of them is like a fire truck with the ladder in the air that's the slide, and then the bounce house that is an educational thing, a way for them to do outreach to schools, and it's a kind of an interactive thing for teaching and training, and that the fire district can use going into schools and so forth to help the children learn, and really was impressed with what it was there. And then the volunteers from Amazon served all of our first responders that were there a meal, and just thank you to all the first responders in our community. Another one of those deals where we hope it doesn't happen, but when we need to make that phone call, we're glad they're there. So thank you to all of our first responders, the Gary Sinise Foundation, and to Amazon for the invitation out there. Meeting with Franklin County Public Works, just learning and asking them questions, along with Eric on that. Just really appreciate Craig and Greg for their answering lots of questions and helping us learn some of their processes. And then yesterday, had a working lunch with our administrator and our lobbying firm, Water Street, talking about Franklin County priorities, roads and infrastructure, the first responder communication system, and Office of Public Defense, and some of the actions that are being considered at a state level. And so that, Mr. Chairman, is my report.
Thank you, and thank you for all your hard work. Commissioner Didier.
Yeah, of course, everybody knows we're in budget and it's going to be a test of our will. With Matt in the room, I wish I would have put in the pitch, and I'm going to do it right now for the Bayou County OPD. I think we need to create a district for OPD so that we can quit competing for attorneys, which is driving up our costs exponentially. And then I asked for I would ask for the Public Records Office to post the roster of all the requests on our website and who they were requested by, so that the public knows, and if there's something they're looking for, they can just go to it and click on it, and they can have their public records request without putting the county through some more financial request, because it costs money to look up these requests. And I asked that we put a roster up there of what has been asked for and by who. Columbia Basin Sustainable Water Coalition meeting, Ben Franklin Council of Governments meeting, and in that meeting there was a $600,000 amount of money that's coming for this. I think it's for the charging stations for electric cars. I never asked the question. I wanted to, but I was on remote, and I will find out what that $600,000 grant is for the community. Franklin County Emergency Management meeting, which I couldn't get on. I tried to get on remotely, and I couldn't get on, and then I texted Commissioner Mullen, and I said, I'm trying to get on. I can't get on. And he goes, well, Commissioner Bauman here. And I said, well, good. Then there's two commissioners. HAPO meeting last night, great meeting. They laid out their first year success, and then the improvements they want to do, and the start of the rollout of the master plan. And I got to tell you, I'm impressed with this group of men that are heading up and running that HAPO out there. And Mr. McCall, you're doing a great job. Keep it up. Yeah, and then I had a phone call from a gentleman out there about the ballot. He says, my wife got a different ballot than I got. And I go, what? He goes, yeah, they're voting. I vote for Commissioner Mullen, but there's no commission on her ballot. And I knew where she came from. So I said, I think she hasn't kept up with her address change. And people got to realize in this county that if you move, you've got to go in and put in your new address. Well, they've been married for a while, and she's still getting District 3, and he's getting District 2. So there's an explanation for everything. And if you haven't cleaned up your address, then you need to get in there and do it. And the last thing is we're coming up on 2 years for this AG opinion, which we are still waiting patiently for, and we haven't got. And we're in a budget situation right now. We could use every dime we can get. And if there's any funds that are available from the county from this opinion that we're waiting for, not a ruling, opinion, the only one that can give us a ruling is a judge. And I'm saying that we need to look at maybe presenting this to a judge for the constitutionality of this unjustified pay to previous commissioners. And we need to get to the bottom of this, because we could use every dollar we can get. Thank you.
So yes, this week's been budget meetings, which I found it interesting and very appreciative that the budget in the jail, they found that they hadn't received payment for their percentage of commissary meals that are over and above what is standard given to the inmates. They have the option of purchasing their own meals through that process, and the county gets a rebate on it. And over the past 3 years, it's added up to over $900,000. So I'm glad they caught it. I'm glad they got reimbursed. I guess it proves even more that the necessity for audits to make sure that we are collecting all the revenue that is due to the county. Went to the HAPO advisory meeting last night, and again, like Commissioner Didier said, they're doing a fantastic job. It's great to see that the plan is coming into place, and we have a plan moving forward that's going to benefit the county and local businesses. The more activities that we have scheduled there at the HAPO Event Center, the more revenue we bring in from taxes and the local businesses, fills hotel rooms, and that is one of the benefits of having the HAPO Event Center in our community. Not only does it provide sources of activities for our young residents to participate in, to keep them occupied with their time. I think that's kind of a added benefit that a lot of people don't put, it's hard to put a value onto it, but I think that value is immense and is much needed in our community. And they are doing a great job of recruiting new activities to come forward at the HAPO Event Center, and I'm just looking forward to what next year is going to bring. But good news. Appreciate all the hard work out there. Had the emergency management meeting last week, and then also going back to the HAPO Center, met with Mike McCall, and there were some concerns about getting rid of some of the ecology blocks that were out there, so made a phone call to Craig Ergman, and the county can use those ecology blocks, and we do appreciate the fact that the county was able to come and pick them up and help in the cleanup out there. So had the good roads of Ben Franklin Walla Walla meeting last week, and as Commissioner Bauman said, that the city of Pasco got 2 of their projects approved, which are much needed, as with the growth here in Franklin County. Was glad to see that those 2 got passed. Had the Board of Health meeting last week. It's been something that they've been working on, and there's going to be there are new regulations as far as septic tanks being put in. So if you're in that process or thinking about it, maybe give them a call and they can and go over some of the new changes there. Also had the Disability Board meeting this week, and we do have a new member on there, which we approved in today's agenda. So I think that covers my update. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add one more item on the HAPO related to the ecology blocks. We will have a resolution in front of you next week that will declare a number of items that are remaining in that back area broken, obsolete, or of no monetary value, which will give us the authorization to dispose of those.
All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
That will be on your agenda next week.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, one more thing on the HAPO Center.
Yes.
And that is the bid for the HVAC. Where are we at on that, Eric? Are we getting close to putting that on the agenda so we can get that out to bid?
I'll have to follow up. It's one of those items that I talked about during my report that I'm trying to put in total context of all the scope and sequence of decisions to come before you.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
That was something that
Mike was off, but go ahead.
I failed to say is I did have opportunity to meet with Mr. McCall and Mr. Leisure and Mr. Harris and asking that same question. And I think that they're working diligently on getting us something. I keep saying, can you get it here yesterday? Can we get that done? So thank you so much for your hard work on that.
Mr. Johnson, any other administrative office business?
No.
So we'll move on to public comment. Is there anyone in the room for public comment? If so, please come forward. You have 3 minutes. No callers on the phone, so hearing none, seeing none, we'll move on to executive session. Is there a need for executive session today?
There is a need for executive session today under RCW 4230-110-1I, potential litigation. The board, county administrator, and legal attending that, Mr. Briggs will call in. About 30 minutes is what he's anticipating.
All right, so at this point, we'll go into executive session for approximately 30 minutes with, under this RCW code stated.
Chair, could we have like a 5-minute intermission?
Yeah,
But,
please.
Before we go into executive session, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll come back for executive session. Thank you.
30.
30 for executive, 5-minute recess for break.
issue is the sheriff's doing this.
So we've come out of executive session with no decisions being made. So we've come out of executive session with no decisions being made. Is there any other need for any further executive session?
No, for executive session, we will go into a closed meeting to discuss collective bargaining.
All right, at this point, we'll go into a closed record meeting,
Closed session.
closed session
No.
10 minutes.
for 10 minutes. Thank you.
Really, we just adjourn the meeting.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
adjourn the meeting,
Yeah.
and then it's a closed session.
At the end of the closed session, we'll adjourn the meeting.
You'll adjourn the meeting before the closed.
Yeah, you can
Okay.
adjourn it right now.
So are we
already
live?
in the closed?
Go ahead, adjourn.
Okay.
So with no further business for the good of the county, this meeting is adjourned.